We're on page 191. I know you are only a few, but unfortunately we don't have time to wait until everyone is here or decided to come to class. Okay, so page 191. We are looking at the ratio analysis here, and this is a financial control as well. So if you have a business, you have to have financial control. And then the main financial statements will actually help you to control your finances. So we look at the statements of profit and loss, also the cash flow statement, and then the statement of financial position is the other one that we are going to look at. Business B, can we maybe take the class serious? Close the door, please, the last one. That lady in front. Hello? Thank you. Close the door, the last person. Thank you. Okay, so the financial statements, what do they do? What they do is they report on the business's financial health. And then the financial statements, we've mentioned them just now. We are only focusing on 3 of them: statement of financial position, profit and loss, and then a cash flow statement. So why are they important? There are actually 5 things here. They give an indication of the profitability, also the liquidity and the solvency of your business. It also presents a standardized view of the business financial position. And then thirdly, it compare the business performance. Number 4, they track the performance trends. And then the last one, they determine the loan eligibility of the business. Okay, so to analyze the financial statements needs to be analyzed to determine the profitability, also the solvability and the liquidity. So if we have to look at different ratios now. So the ratio is when one figure is expressed in terms of another. So we've got an example there. The total number of entrepreneurship or EBM students in a college is 900. The total number of students in the whole college is 2,700. And that will then give you a ratio of 900 to 2,700 students has entrepreneurship as a subject. So the ratio would be 1 to 3. Then if you express this in a percentage, the 900 students divide by 2,700 multiply with 100. That means then 33% of students actually has EVM as a subject. A little bit of maths there. What is it? Grade 8, 9 maths. Okay, then we look at the following ratios in the section. And here we are going to look at the profitability ratio and also the liquidity ratio, the accounts received turnover rate, and then in the inventory turnover rate. Now, in N4, you actually did the calculations on the profitability. And you also know how to calculate or do the profit and loss. The calculations of the liquidity ratio, there is then a table 8.8 again, if you forgot how to do that. And then the profitability ratio, there's also more information regarding that, how to work out your profit. So if we look at example 8.9, I'm sure you can recall this information. This is nothing new. Right. Next one is then, this we've done just now. We're going to do this now. The return on assets, or ROA. We have our profit, net profit or income. And with that, we are going to work out our profit and loss. We're going to need it for that, as we've mentioned just now on page 193. Sure, you can still remember that. So your gross profit is sales minus cost of sales, and then your net profit is your gross profit plus other income minus expenses. Total assets, this will be your non-current plus your current assets. And then the ROA formula is your net profit before tax divided by your total assets. Okay, so we're going to look at this one example, 8.10 on page 194. Okay, so we do have a financial statement here for PJ's Clothing. So the statement of profit and loss, that is what we've discussed just now, your gross profit and your net income. And then regarding the net profit before tax, this is now where we're going to look at the ROA. So you will work out what your the non-current assets are. They are then your land and buildings and equipment added together to give you a total, plus then the current assets. In this case, it is 730,000, which includes your inventory, your trade receivables, and cash. And then that will then give you the 367. That is your net profit before tax. They normally give you that amount. Divide by then the, if you add 380,000 plus 730,000, you will get 1,110,000. Multiply with 100 or percentage, and that will then give you 33%. So your rate for ROA will then be 33%. Okay. Return on investment, ROI. I'm sure you've done this one as well. Let us just go on to page 196. Okay, here we have the net profit or income again, same as the previous one. Capital, this is then the statement of financial position that you're going to need this. Use your capital as it is at the beginning of the year, not the owner's equity. That is what you're going to do here. And then ROI, the formula is net profit before tax divided by your owner's equity. Okay, so in this case, example 8.11, we've got 367, which is still the same as the previous example. Divide by your 428, which is then the capital, the owner's equity. This information was on page 185, the capital that they actually gave us there. Okay, multiply with 100, and that will then give you 85.75%. Okay, so interpretation of this, the business is in a very profitable stand, and the current interest rate of 10% is then is taken into account, and that is how you can say that this is a profitable business. Then liquidity ratio is the next one that we're looking at. And this is then where you have your work capital plus your current assets and minus your current liabilities. The current assets is then the inventory, your trade receivables, cash, which includes bank cash flows and also petty cash, and then your current liabilities that you're going to subtract is what must be paid from the cash generated. So your bank overdraft, also short-term loan, and then the trade payables as well. Okay, so we have two kinds of liquidity here, the calculations. The first one is the current, and then the second one is the asset test ratio. So the current ratio is then includes how well the current assets cover the claims against these assets. And this is then the short-term liabilities. The formula includes all current assets, and you have a ratio that should at least be 2:1, meaning for every R1 of short-term debt or current liability, the business has R2 to pay it off. And then the asset test ratio, this is then that will indicate the real liquid assets, excluding inventory. And here you have it consists of the trade receivables and cash on hand. So bank, cash float, and also petty cash. So the ratio here, it should be at least 1:1. So for every R1, you have to be able to pay R1 off as well. Okay, so the formulas are there on the right-hand side in the column. Two other valuable indicators for the accounts received turnover rate and also the inventory turnover rate on page 198. Okay, so the accounts receivable turnover rate, this is then where you measure how many times a business can turn its trade receivables or debtors into cash during the financial year. The indication, or it indicates the average number of days it takes to collect money from the trade receivables or debtors. And here we have a formula of accounts receivable turnover rate, which is then the average credit sales divided by the average trades receivables. Also your average collection period. So what is that amount? We said for a year, that is 365 days, divided by the accounts receivable turnover rate. And then you will have the answer in days, how many days this turnover will then rate will happen or occur. Then we have the inventory turnover rate. This is where we look at the number of times on average the business has sold the entire inventory during a year. So it indicates whether the business is overstocked or understocked. So the inventory turnover rate, the stock divided by, or the formula will be cost of sales divided by your average inventory, and then the number of days again for a year, divided by the inventory turnover rate. And that answer will also be in days. Okay, activity 8.7 just says what we are going to, just the formulas and definitions. I'm not going to focus on that too much now. Then on page 199, this is then performing calculations. Again, profit and loss. This is nothing new to you. I'm sure you are all able to do this. And then the whole layout on the next page. This is what we actually did right now. The current ratios, let us just work through that one. Obviously, we're going to use the information now on page 199. No? Okay, so maybe we must work through 1.1 as well. So let us do the whole on example on page 200. So we've got the asset test ratio. Here we have the current assets, 730. This is now information that you will get on page 199, minus your current liability, which is the 280. Okay. This excludes your inventory, no? So this will then be, let's just work out what that amount is quickly. 730 minus 200, and where's the calculator? I haven't calculated it. So here you will then get a ratio of that amount Just use my phone quickly. Sorry, guys, I didn't work this one out. Okay, so we see the current assets, which is in 730. Just clear 730,000. 730,000 minus the 280,000. That will give you then 450. Huh? So this is 1.4321. Okay, so for every R1.43, which we pay the debt, we will have R1. Okay, then the current ratio. This is then the current assets, again, that we've used on a previous page, which is then the total of your inventory as well as your trade receivables and your cash adds up to 730 to the ratio of 314, which is your current liabilities. So what this means is then for every R1 that the business owes, it has R2.32 to pay their debts. So ratio 2:1. Question 2, does the business have enough cash to pay its debt according to the asset test ratio? And the answer here is yes. The business has enough money to pay off the debt. Then number 3, calculate the net working capital. So here you have your current assets minus your current liabilities. Current assets, 730,000 minus your 314, and that's going to give you a total of 416,000. Then number 4, calculate the account receivable turnover rate. Okay, so the formula is the average credit sales divided by your average trade variables. In this example, we have 362,000 average credit rate. Let's just see where's that one. No, I don't know where that one is now. Divide by your 150,000, which is your average trade receivables. Okay, it's here on the current assets, under the current assets. Okay, and then this will then be 2 to 44.1, 2.41 times. So almost 3 times during a day that you will actually have the turnover of the stock. Why is that important, do you think? Okay, not only to see if you are overstocked, but also to make sure that you don't have products that expires. No? Keep the first in, first out basis or standard. Average collection period, we said 365 days, and we've worked out just now what our accounts receivable turnover rate is, which is then the 2.41. So divide that by 365 days will give you then 151.5 days. So every 151 days, they will actually have new stock in as well. Then on page 201, the inventory turnover rate. The example there is then the inventory turnover rate is the cost of sales divided by your average inventory. So 488,000 divided by 280,000. That will then give you 1.74 times during the year that you have the inventory turnover. Okay. Then the number of days, the 365, and divided by the inventory turnover rate. 209.8. That is what we're going to get there. So you use the formula of the inventory turnover rate that we've worked out previously. And then you will get every 209.8 days. So you can actually say 210 days. You will sell all the inventory. Okay, so there's activity 8.8, also 8.9. Then your break-even point, we will do that when we are done, the profit and loss on activity. I think we will do 8.8. Then the break-even point. Now this you've done in N4. I'm not going to go through this work, but this is just refreshment activities again for then up to page 208. Then control of the technologies, the next thing that we're looking at. Oops. Okay, so we use technology in most of the fields in a business, manufacturing, transport, communication, and that will improve the service of the product. So you can then, it can be very expensive as it becomes outdated very quickly, as we all know, and it needs to be replaced very often. So technology is found in the external environment and can therefore either be posed as a threat, no? So that can be having a lot of effects on your business as well. So here's the industry 4 point and then 4.3 point. I think we are almost here still. So okay, let's go through this one. In 1784, we had the first industrial revolution, where we had the starting of machinery, which was still very in a very beginning stage, where there was not a lot of electricity available. So people had to make plans by including steam and fire and all kinds of things to actually get the machines to work, or then manpower as well. Then industry 2, this is your mass production. That was, you have assembling lines and electricity energy that we actually used. And then in the industry 3, automation and also computers and electronics. And now we are at the cyber physical systems and also internet of things and networks. So we're getting more and more to technologically wise. Okay, inventory stock, control of that. We are, okay, about computers and stuff, there's technology thing at the bottom of page, the table, 209 going on to 211. Really, you guys, this is self-study. I'm not going to work through that information. Then inventory stock control on page 211. This is referred to as dead capital. The reason for this is it costs money to store inventory. You don't want a situation where you have stock in the stock room, because no one can see that to buy that. It might at the end just be stolen, or it can be outdated or go out of fashion, and there's no guarantee that you will convert that into cash. So never overstock your business. You should always avoid that, and also make sure that you have safety stock, but obviously not too much as well. So the extra inventory, that is in the safety stock that you will keep for unexpected changes in demand. So why the inventory control is important? Sorry. Every business should have an efficient inventory control system. This is where we're heading now. So to prevent the business from running out of raw materials for manufacturers and also to meet the changes in demand for a product, to prevent out of stock situations, also to speed up order processing in warehouse, to alert operations managers about when they reorder items, also to keep up-to-date records of stock levels, and the last one, to help the business to keep track of sales patterns and informing the future decisions. Okay, so next up we have the different types of inventory that we can get. I'm sure you are aware of this. Raw materials that you're going to use to process something, also the work in progress stock, which is partially completed goods, and then the finished goods, the ones that are ready to be sold. Okay, so the inventory control policy, we have aspects that need to be included, and that is like quantities, also reorder point, and then the inventory that requires special attention. So quantities, page 212 in your textbooks. This will be determined by the type of inventory and also type of business or the manufacturer. You will find a balance between running out of the inventory and also having too much, because that can be costly. Consider the type of inventory, also the reorder point and how much safety stock you need. Quantities of inventory, taking into account that some inventory has expiry dates. Keep the inventory control cards. We'll look at that now. Actually, it was on page, let's see, 8.8 now. It's still gonna, yeah, 8.11 is on page. We'll find it now. Okay. Computerized systems make this way easier. So as the stock are then sold, it will be deducted from the system, or as you receive then stock, it will be added to the system. Reorder point, or ROP, this is then a specific quantity level of your inventory that needs to be reordered. It tells you when to replace and also when you're going to run out. So the factories actually talk about lead time. I'm sure you know about that because you have sales as a subject as well. So this is in a time that time between placing an order and also receiving the inventory from the supplier. So this is very effective. That is then why you should also make provision for safety stock if you are still waiting on the stock. Okay, then we have the inventory that requires social attention. Special attention. Oh my goodness, sorry guys. This is the inventory that has an expiry date or warranties that expire at a specific time, and you need to sell them or remove it from the shelves. This will include medicine, also food and health products. Other examples that need to have special attention can also include items with a high value, like jewelry, designer jewelry, scheduled medicine, and also seasonal items like clothes that get outdated as well. Okay, next up, we look at the inventory control cards. There it is, the ones that we were looking for. This is then a document that will show the status of every item held in the stockroom. So it will have a name, also the reorder level, the vendor information, the date, the document that you reference it, also detail by including expiry dates, the number of items received, the number of items issued or taken out, and then the current inventory level or the totals then. Then we have the types of inventory costs. This is where you're keeping inventory is then a costly exercise, and it includes variables, various other types of costs, including the purchasing cost, which is the price that is charged by a supplier, less possible discounts plus other costs can be included here, like your cost of delivery or imported costs. Then the carrying cost, this is the cost or then of storage, insurance, theft, depreciation, and also the cost of capital. Then the ordering cost, this is where you have the expenses that incurred when creating and also processing an order for a supplier. Additional inventory costs to consider, setup costs, which is in the cost that incurred every time that you place an order with your supplier. So the cost of moving the goods to the warehouse or store is also known as ordering costs. Storage cost. This is where the holding has too much inventory, ties up cash, and this could then use, but you can then use this for other purposes, like running out of inventory, and also you will lose sales on this. Okay, then the economic order quantities, EOQ. This is then the formula that the inventory managers use to determine the ideal order size, the quantities, how much you actually have to order. Okay, so the manager will then consider the cost of the inventory, also the annual demand for the products, and the cost of placing a new order. We have two formulas here. The first one is a fixed order quantity, and the next one is a fixed time period. Okay, so the fixed order quantity, just see, I think I've got this one on the slide. Yeah, there it is. We've got different symbols here with different explanations. Please make sure that you familiarize yourself with that. The formula is for the economic order quantity. We have Q, which is then the quantity of inventory to be ordered. And then you will work out the root for that, 2, and then DS, sorry. That is then your, where's that one? Okay, how to calculate this? This is the whole explanation. So calculate a predetermined inventory level, your safety stock, order the inventory only when the inventory has been has reached the minimum levels, and then compare the total number of counted items of inventory to these the minimum levels. Okay, so to come back to the root, twice the annual demand, and also the cost of placing a new order. Okay, we'll work through an example now, then you will understand this. And then the reorder point will then be DL, so the average daily demand, as well as the lead time that the supplier takes to deliver. And then for the total cost, TC per annum, this is then your annual cost per unit divide or plus the DS, which is then the annual cost of placing a new order, divided by the quantity of inventory to be ordered, plus the quantity of inventory to be ordered, and then also the cost of storing each unit. Okay, so I think let us just work through the example there on page 215 so that this can make sense to you. Okay, so how to work this out? Number one, they ask us to do an economic order quantity. So maybe you want to make a few notes here. The formula is Q, and then the root equals the root of 2 ds, which we said is 2 times the annual demand. Which in this case is a 2000. The information is there just above that. So they will give you all these figures. You don't have to stress about that. And then we still have the S, which is the setup costs. So the setup cost is then the 10. Okay, so divide this then by the 2.5, which is the H. What is H? The holding cost. So R2.50 per year. And that will then give you a root of 40,000. So twice the amount of 2,000 is obviously 4,000. Multiply with 10 will give you 40,000. Are you guys still with me? Divide by 2.5, and that will then give you 16,000, square root of 16,000, which will then be 126.49 units. So this is then the economic order quantity. Are you all with me? Did I lose someone? Okay, so please make notes for the next one as well. Number 2, reorder point. So here we have DL divided by 365 because we said we work on the yearly figures. So 2,000 is then our annual demand times the 10, which is the lead time that they gave you there just at the information, divide by 365, and that will then give you 54.79 units. Will be maybe good if you can do the calculations with us, then it's going to make more sense. Then number 3, they ask us to work out the total cost. So this is the total cost. The formula is the annual purchase cost plus the annual ordering cost plus the annual holding cost. So 2,000, the annual holding cost, that is then the cost per unit is 25, plus the that will actually give you 50,000 plus the 2,000 times 10,000 divided by 126.49 will give you 158.22 plus 126, which is then our annual holding cost, times 2.5, which is your cost per unit, divide by 2. And that will then give you 158.11. So if you add that up, you will have total cost of 50,316.23 cents. Everyone still with me? Hello? Is there anyone there? Okay. Calculations for the fixed time period, page 216. So the inventory calculations for the fixed time period here, the daily demand at an ice cream shop is 30 units. we are at example 8.19 now. The review times is 30 days and the lead time is 7 days. So there are 460 ice creams in stock at the beginning of the review period. Calculate how many ice cream servings the shop should order. Okay, so here we have the quantity. The formulas is on page 214 at the bottom. Huh? So the quantity is also on the screen. Quantity, that's what you're going to work out. So the D stands for forecast average demand per unit over the period of the length of time between the reviews and also the lead time. Okay, so minus then I. I is the current inventory level. So 30, that was then the D, which I didn't mention. The forecast average, oh, I did. Demand per unit over the period of length of time, as well as the lead time. Okay, so this is then over 30 units, we said, times then the length of time is also 30 days plus 7 days minus the 460 ice creams. So if you do that calculations, you should end up with 650 ice creams. Everyone with me? Okay. Last thing is then the size of the safety stock. Now, remember we said the safety stock is an additional inventory that you need to keep on hand to make sure that you don't run out of stock. No? So this means that you may lose customers if you don't have stock. This is something that you don't want to happen. Okay, so factors that will determine the size of the safety stock: uncertainty in demand forecasting. So you're not sure about this, if the customers really would like this. So compile a sales budget as you have an operational budget to determine your inventory levels. That's the first thing that you're going to do. Then take factors like fashion, also demand during a season into account. Manufacturer also needs to take seasonal trends into account. It is also difficult to forecast demand. We know that because you all of a sudden has a rise in the price of raw materials, and then the price of the final products may lower the demand again. New products, like your various products that you all manufactured from cannabis, can you still remember that activity that we did? May lead to a sudden increase in demand. And then the higher the uncertainty of proper forecast, the larger the amount of safety stock you need to carry, because otherwise you might have the situation that you run out of stock. Then the probability in delays from the suppliers. You might have this situation. You can't control that. It's uncontrollable. If you look at things like strikes or unforeseen circumstances on the roads, natural disasters, or even delays at the harvest that we all are aware of as well. So these are all threats because they are external environmental aspects. that can result in a loss for the enterprise. Make provision for safety stock for possible delays from the supplier, because you never know. So you have to control your suppliers as well. Then lead time of the suppliers. This is the time between when you actually order and then when you receive the stock. Who your suppliers is, and also ordering goods that need to be imported. That could also have a major effect, and also the demand for the inventory. Then it depends on whether your order first needs to be manufactured. That can also have effect. And then the longer the lead time, the more safety stock you need to carry. Then the cost of safety stock. You need to find a balance that you don't have too much and also don't run out of stock. And then the dead stock, we spoke about that, because there's no guarantee that you will sell that stock. Keeping too much inventory means that you have a high warehousing and also insurance cost, which is also nowadays a big risk for any business. Okay, so the credit control, last part of this module. This is where you buy on credit and also grant credit to your customers. Never a good idea. The managers need to control this to ensure that the business remain liquid. This is then where you have enough cash to pay your own current liabilities. Okay, so we have to look at the credit policy. This is then the credit period. Most of the times, this is then within 30 days of the purchase. Credit standards. This is the maximum amount or on the account. For instance, like your 1,400. Collection policy. How will you collect the money? And you must obviously have a plan in place here. The accounts will be postponed or posted or then emailed. Payments will be done via credit or debit cards or EFTs or cash. Then the outstanding account will be handed over for debt collection if the account is over longer than 2 months in arrears. Then the discounts. This is how you encourage your customers to pay the at least something, 5% discount within 20 days of purchase. And then the cost of credit, record keeping. This is obviously where you have to keep record of your paying customers. Also having the correct software for capturing debts, and also the debitors clerk, and then telephone cost to follow up outstanding debt. Tied up capital. This is then where the debtors form part of a networking capital. This is then where you have capital tied up as it is not cash until the trade receivables have been paid, have made the payment. Then the irrecoverable or debt, or then the bad debts. Irrecoverable. So this is where you know that you're going to lose some money, no? Measurements should be built in to curb the risk of bad debt. There will always be customers who will not pay. That's why you have to create a credit policy. Then the lost interest. This is where your business deal with the trade receivables that will still need to pay. So they will lose potential interest earned on cash. Then your follow-up costs, where the trade receivables do not pay, it results in follow-up costs. So now you have to phone them or have a debt tractor or person getting the information or then looking for a person to actually pay your debt. Appointing a debt collector, and then also sending out notice to pay, and then the last one, legal costs, where you are then suing this specific customer. Okay, I think we must do this case study of David's car wash. This is more relevant. It's not that complicated as well. No, we're not going to do this one. Sorry. I want us to do one of the calculations. Question 4. Yes. Question 4. No, wait, let me see. It's either question 4, question 6, or question 7. Which one don't you have any knowledge in? Please help me quickly. And I want to give you things that you know how to do. I want to give you an extra activity so that we can rather work through that. Question 6? Or do you want to, maybe 6 and 7? Yes. Okay, we'll do 6 and 7. Okay, guys, we will do this next week, Monday then. Okay? Make sure that you've signed the register. Thank you.